A shalom to the hopeful elect. First and foremost, I'd like to give all honor, praises, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Rachakodash. Double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders at Great Millstone who teach the truth and rule well. This is the brother Yatabia Wa'ala coming back from the GMS SF Bay Area camp. And I got a quick lesson today. All right. Lord's will is edifying. This one going into the topic of making time for this truth. All right. Making time for Yahweh Bahashim Shai, making time for wisdom. All right. And you know, now is more important than ever. All right. Because we're so close to the end. But with that being said, all right, there's going to be a sacrifice to obtain wisdom. All right. To keep wisdom, to do this work, to be a disciple of Yahweh Bashim Shai. All right. There's things that are going to be sacrificed. Your time with your family, right? Your time with your kids, your time with your wife, time with your woman, time with, things that you want to do, so to speak, right? Because why, your time is going to be mostly towards serving the Lord, and again, in balance, right? The main thing is making time for the Lord, taking care of that business. All right, and then being able to do what you can, but with that there comes a sacrifice, right? You're not going to be the best husband. You're not going to be the best father, so to speak. You know how this world sees the best, right? Because why, you have work to do. You're going to be working, you're going to be pushing out lessons, you're going to be reading, right? You're going to be going to camp, okay? And again, that's just part of the sacrifice. But let me start with this. This is Luke 14 and 25, and the subheading is discipleship tested. It says, "And there went great multitudes with them, and he turned and said unto them, If any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brethren and sisters, yea, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple." Now, does this literally mean you hate him and you want him to die? No, this means what? They get put in a secondary position, right? The truth comes first. Obtaining wisdom, doing everything that you can to obtain salvation. All right. We know that salvation is by predestination, right? But what do? We put on as the elect because we are the hopeful elect. So there's a protocol, there's an algorithm, right? There's a routine on how to live your life according to the scriptures. When you do that, things get so-called neglected as this world sees it, right? You're not going to make all the games, all right, to your children if they have sports, if they're in sport. You're not going to be there every weekend, going on dates, all right, with your woman. Your job, all right? You're not going to, especially if you have, a certain job that calls for OT or just going above and beyond. It's not going to happen, right? Because you have things to take care of, ultimately this work to take care of, all right, and that's going to take a back seat. So job opportunities might not be there because hey, you're doing the will of the Lord, right, to the best of your ability. But the point is, you make time for the Lord, all right, and it takes away from time from other things, all right, and that's just what it is, okay. But it says, I'll read it again, verse 26, Luke 14:26. "If any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brethren and sisters, yea, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple." So again, those things take a back seat, okay? Things need to be done. The elect need to be fed, right? Yahweh Shai said, "If you love me, feed my sheep." Okay? Again, we have a job to do, and we want salvation ourselves. So what do? We get into this wisdom, right? Isaiah 33 and 6, which I got. Matter of fact, let me just pull it up now. Isaiah 33 and 6, it says, "And wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy time." So it's very important now, especially being at the end, to get into this, right? Get into this wisdom, get into this truth, all right? Because it helps you navigate. We want wisdom to meet us in every thought, especially when, okay, all hell's breaking loose. We're not going to be able to go, we might not have a Bible, by us. We might not be able to go on YouTube and watch a lesson. We might not have a phone, whatever the case may be. So what does it have to be? It has to be, in our lob, right? In our mind, in our heart. Okay. And that's what's going to make us stable. But what does it do? It's a process. It's that process now of doing that heavy lifting, doing that work, getting it in now, right? Repetition. What do they say? Repetition makes perfect. But with that, what? There's other things that in this life that'll be so-called neglected, but that's okay. It says, "And wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times, and strength of salvation," right? This is the way we get out of here. It says the fear of the Lord is his treasure. Okay. And the fear of the Lord, fearing Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, what does that make you do? It makes you do what he says, right? And the main thing that's coming is that MOTB. So if you fear Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, you're not going to take that MOTB because you know exactly what's coming. Revelation, it tells you that in Revelation, the 14th chapter. Okay. But the point is, we're at the end. All right. We're at the end. So these things, they just take a back seat. And it's, it is what it is, and however the Lord has it, this is the only shot, really, if you love your family, okay, that they have to be saved through you, right? And if you're saved, this is the only shot, the best shot that you have is to do the work, okay? And again, it might come with strained relationships. You might not have the best, again, so-called relationship with your mom, your dad, your woman, your kids, all right, your sister. It is what it is, okay? You just do what you can. Again, you take care of the work first and foremost, and then everything else falls into place, right? But it says, verse 27, and who's well, let me read it again. 26, it says, if any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brethren and sisters, yea, and his own life also. That's a big thing too. All right, there's things that we want to do, right? As men, you have certain hobbies, right? You have certain you know things that you do to pass time, so to speak. But to really obtain wisdom, it talks about, I'm gonna grab it in Ecclesiasticus, about that leisure time, right? So if you really want this, some things are going to be neglected, even your own wants, but that's the sacrifice. It says, he cannot be my disciple, and whosoever doth not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. All right, so we have to this is just part of our sacrifice. All right, if we want to be a disciple of Yahweh Shema Shai, which again, that disciple goes into discipline, things need to be sacrificed. All right, this is Matthew 6 and 33. It says, but seek ye first the kingdom of the Most High. So our attention is first and foremost to seeking the kingdom, right? What is that? Again, prayer, reading, studying, all right, doing your lessons, going to camp, all that, it comes first. All right, and then what? Everything is secondary, right? The point is, you have to make time for Yahweh Shema Shai. It says, but seek ye first the kingdom of the Most High and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. And when you read up, it goes into being provided for, all right, in the times of trouble. All right, something that, heathens worry about, clothes, food. Well, us taking care of the work, us doing the will of the Lord, all right, we don't have to worry about everything else. Everything else is just, again, going to fit into place, right? And what does that include? Our families. So again, the best shot our families have of making this out is if we continue and do this work to the best of our abilities. All right. Uh this is 1 Corinthians 7 and 31. It says, and they that use this world as not abusing it, for the fashion of this world passeth away. All right. Now, again, it's like the Matrix, right? We get in and we get out. We do what we can. We have little hobbies. We may have families. You have a wife. Yeah, you do benevolence. All right, children. You train up the children. You do that as best as you can. But again, what comes first? This truth, right? It says, they that use this world is not abusing it, for the fashion of this world passeth away. And then again, going into things that we like to do. All right, some brothers like to go out, have some drinks. Some brothers like to go hit up the nightlife scene. Some brothers like to whatever, play video games. All right, whatever different hobbies and things to use up your pastime. All right, it is what it is. But again, what do we set limits on it, right? It says, but they that use this world not abusing it, for the fashion of this world pass away. Yeah, you don't want to get into that mode where you're abusing it, right? When you're doing that more and it's taking up more time and it's taking away time from serving the Lord. All right, you get caught up in, you haven't done a lesson or you haven't done your reading, right? Whatever the case may be, because you're caught up, whatever, playing video games. You're caught up being too much into your wife, too much into your kids, right? You have to put that limiter on it. 1 Corinthians 6 and 12, it says, all things are lawful unto me, but all things are not expedient. This is part of examining yourself, knowing, what's good for your time and what's not. Some things are just some things just got to be cut off. Okay. And it might not be against the law, right? But it's not expedient. It says, all things are lawful unto me, but all things are not expedient. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be brought under the power of any. It's just really, being disciplined and having a routine. All right, having a routine in not doing too much that goes against what you need to do. All right, too much, not doing too much that feeds into the flesh. All right, again, just putting limiters on things, and whatever that may be. It's different for every brother. All right, this is the book of Sirach, chapter 38, and yeah, straight to the point. Verse 24 says, "The wisdom of a learned man cometh by opportunity of leisure, and he that hath little business shall become wise." And see, this is the point. When you put limiters on things that you like to do, all right, when you put limiters on distractions and whatever the case, things that feed the flesh, well, what are you able to do? You're able to obtain wisdom better, right? You're able to get into what really matters. And again, we got it in Isaiah 33 and 6. That's going to be the stability of our times. All right. While everybody else is bugging out, because we've made this truth our first and foremost, all right, our priority. Well, now, we can exercise the fruits, right? It says, the wisdom of a learned man cometh by opportunity of leisure. So what are you doing on your so-called downtime? We got to work, right? That's 8 hours a day. Apostle Tahar went into this a while back. What are you doing? Sleep. Maybe you sleep 8 hours a day, right? That's another 8 hours. You have 8 hours left. There's 24 hours in a day, right? 8 hours left. And what are you doing with those 8 hours? Okay, 16 hours is already, what do you call it? Spoken for, so to speak, right? And sometimes, you don't sleep all those 8 hours. Sometimes at work you have breaks, right? You have lunches. So there's a lot of time that you can get some reading in. You can get a lesson in, right? You go over the Hebrew, you can watch a lesson. Whatever the case may be, anything that goes into this wisdom. It says, the wisdom of a learned man cometh by opportunity of leisure, and he that hath little business shall become wise. And this is why the apostles always going to be in stoic, living a simplistic life, not having too much on your plate, because you can really dive in, right? You can really dive into Yahweh Bashim Yahshai. You can really get into this wisdom and learn, okay? And it shows too, you can see apostles, you can see elders, who, truly made this thing a priority. They can go into the history, right? They can go into the Hebrew. They can go into prophecy. They know what's going on, watching the signs of the times, going into geopolitics, right? Why? Because this is what they made their priority, okay? And likewise for us, this is what we have to do. All right? This is Sirach chapter 6 and verse 18. It says, my son, gather instruction from thy youth up, so shalt thou find wisdom till thine own age. So it's a never-ending process. Okay? It says, come unto her, and that's why, again, it's good to have a routine. Come unto her as one that ploweth and soweth, and wait for her good fruits. For thou shalt not toil much in laboring about her, but thou shalt eat of her fruits right soon. So it does take a little work, right? You have to plow, you have to sow spiritually. All right, how do you do that? Well, you read, you study, okay? You research, you go into the news, you watch lessons, all right? It says, wait for her good fruits, for thou shalt not toil much in laboring about her, but thou shalt eat of her fruits right soon. And it says, you shall not toil much. A little bit goes a long way. A little bit every day. I remember the elder Hanak, going into the health, going into getting your walks in. Hey, you walk a mile a day. Well, what is that? That's 7 miles a week, right? 7 miles a week. How much? 7 times 4 weeks in a month, right? That's 28 miles in a month that you've done. It all adds up. You know, how much more for reading? You read a couple chapters a day, right? You do a lesson, you know, even if it's a quick hit. However, whatever, you know, it takes. Okay? It says, "My son, gather instruction from thy youth up, so shalt thou find wisdom till thine own age. Come unto her as one that ploweth and soweth, and wait for her good fruits. For thou shalt not toil much in laboring about her, but thou shalt eat of her fruits right soon. She is very unpleasant to the unlearned. He that is without understanding will not remain with her." And we can see those examples, right? Those who have no understanding, that wisdom flees. It says, "She will lie upon him as a mighty stone of trial, and he will cast her from him ere it be long. For wisdom is according to her name, and she is not manifest unto many." Okay, so we want to remain with wisdom. So what do we have to do? We have to fight. "Give ear, my son, receive my advice, and refuse not my counsel. Put thy feet unto her fetters, and her neck in her chain, and thy neck into her chain. Bow down thy shoulder and bear her, and be not grieved with her bonds." All right. "Come unto her with thy whole heart, your mind. Keep her ways with all thy power. Search and seek, and she shall be made known unto thee. And when thou hast got hold of her, let her not go." So, you know, when you go into that work, right? When you go into that learning, when you go into the reading, and then it takes what? Then there's a maintenance because you don't want to let it go. So again, that goes into the routines. "For at the last thou shalt find her rest, and that shall be turned to thy joy. Then shall her fetters be a strong defense for thee, and her chains a robe of glory. For there is a golden ornament upon her, and her bands are purple lace." All right. So ultimately, all right, hey, this is what you put on as the elect. That knowledge, that wisdom and knowledge shall be thy stability of thy times. When you toil and you work for it, you know, it becomes a part of you. All right. Yep. And it talks about being around the elders. All right. You know, watching these lessons, going into them, doing everything that you can. All right. To obtain that wisdom. Matthew 7:7, it says, "Ask and it shall be given you. Seek and you shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. For everyone that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and him that knocketh it shall be opened." All right. And what is that? Ask Yahweh Bashim Shai. Pray to Yahweh Bashim Shai. Okay. Seek the Lord while he may be found. These lessons are up, right? Hey, we have access to our Bible. We have access to the Hebrew. Okay. We have access to, you know, our phones and being able to research and hit these lessons. So we just got to do it. All right. And again, that's the fight. It says, it says, "Or what man is there of you whom if a son asks bread, will he give him a stone? Or if he asks a fish, and he give him a serpent? If ye then, being evil, know how to give good gifts unto your children, how much more shall your Father which is in heaven give good things to them that ask him? Therefore, all things whatsoever you would that men should do to you, do you even so to them, for this is the law and the prophets." All right. And the point is what? Asking the Lord, knocking, seeking. All right. And I'll end off on this. This is James 1:5. It says, "If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of the Most High, that giveth to all men liberally, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him." So you have to pray first and foremost, right? And then what? Once you pray, you put in that work. You sacrifice whatever needs to be sacrificed, you know, again, time in obtaining this wisdom and keeping this wisdom. It says, "But let him ask in faith, nothing wavering." You have to believe. "For he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea, driven from the wind and tossed. For let not that man think that he shall receive anything of the Lord. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways." So you have to believe, right? What comes with that faith? There's an action behind it. If you believe in it, right? You believe that the Lord will give you wisdom. Well, again, you have to do your part, putting in that effort, toiling, right? Sowing, going into it. All right. But yeah, Lord's will. This was edifying. Like I said, I just want to go into, you know, this topic of making time for the Lord, making time for this wisdom, because ultimately, All right, it's gonna be the stability of our times, and this is what's gonna help us get up out of here, right? Again, Lord's will, this is edifying. Once again, I want to give all honor, praises, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Kodash. Double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders at Great Millstone. Shalom to the elect, and above all.